Okay. I know. It's been, a month, maybe more, since my last podcast. Okay, I'm aware. Sorry about that, folks. But, duty calls. How you doing this fine March morning? So how are you doing this morning, my happy innovators? How have you been for the past month? Have you missed me? Probably not. That's okay. I understand. I'm just a voice in your ear every once in a while, I hope, right? Thank you for that. Thank you for listening to this podcast if you are right now, because it's very important that I have people listening, and it's a motivation, right, to keep on talking. And, it's been an interesting month, to say the least. I'm sure at this point, everybody that's listening to this podcast is aware of the coronavirus. Everybody's talking about that right now. It's just, everywhere you look, you can't look at anything right now, especially online, without it being touched somehow by this coronavirus that's causing so much trouble all over the world, really. And, at first I was kind of reluctant to talk about it because it's just what everybody's talking about. But I kind of figure sometimes, anyway, with the Singularity Podcast, it's kind of like a mile marker for me, in time, when I look back on old episodes and I see what they're about and I know what I'm talking about, and it has a date stamped on it, and I can kind of catalog time a little bit better that way. Does that sound strange? Probably not. You probably know what I mean, right? At least I hope you do. It's not that complicated, right? But I gotta tell you, last night, as you know, if you've listened to any of my previous podcasts, you may or may not know, I guess, that I've been getting into hockey a lot this past year, maybe the past couple years now. And, I'm following the Boston Bruins, and it's a lot of fun, and I look forward to it very much. It's an exciting game to watch, and it's, I could go on and on about it, but my point is that last night I found out, in the midst of all this coronavirus stuff that's happening right now, they have canceled the rest of the Boston Bruins season, or at least postponed it until a later date, because they don't want large groups of people getting together, and trying to halt the spread of the coronavirus. And, up until that point, to be honest with you, I hadn't really cared too much about the coronavirus. But, I just, well, we'll get into that. But, I really look forward to these hockey games, and, we're starting to head into the championship right now, and the team I'm rooting for is at the top of the heap. I mean, they're the best team in their conference, and, I've watched every single game and just been really kind of invested in it, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to kind of unwind at the end of the day and stuff, and, they postponed the season yesterday, and I was like, you know what, that's it. That's the last straw. I'm going to have to talk about the coronavirus, and I have so many things to say about this. I have so many thoughts, and some of them I can share, and some of them I probably shouldn't. But I am not comfortable, let's say, or yeah, that's a good word. I am not comfortable with the situation heading in the direction that it is, with this, pandemic and all that kind of stuff. I'm not exactly sure what's really going on here. That's kind of how I feel, and I've been thinking about this, how could I not, right? It's constantly being talked about, and every day there's like a new story, and people are dying supposedly, and all this stuff, and it's like it's a wilderness of information and misinformation, and we live in such a stupid time. We just do. And people are just going off the chain with this thing, man. It's like, it's crazy. And I know that you know what I'm talking about. I know it because it's in your life too. It has to be, right? It's everywhere. And you know what? It reminds me of back in the time of 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down. It reminds me of that time, that kind of mood. And I have thought about that since it happened. I have analyzed it, the whole 9/11 thing, and just thought about the time and what happened and what the climate was like, socially and politically at that time. It was unavoidable. It was on you, especially here in the States. It was palpable. It was every day. It was at the front of the news stories. It was the story. It was everything. And then, of course, the conspiracies and all those things that kind of like rippled out for the next 20 years and continue to ripple out, I won't get into all that, but I guess what I do want to talk about is that zeitgeist, and that was actually the word that was being thrown around at that time. I don't know if you remember that, but I do. The spirit of the times. And when I go back in my memory and I think about 9/11 and I think about that time, the one like resounding thought, or after all the analysis that I've done on that situation, as horrible as it was, because it was absolutely horrible, okay? Whether it was real or fake or conspiracy or not, it doesn't matter. It was bad, okay? It really was. But what was even worse than the actual 9/11 event was the spirit that seemed to descend on at least America at that time. I don't know what it was like in other countries, but I'm sure it had an effect. It had to have. And when I think about that spirit, okay, that descended on America at that time, probably for the next, I would say probably 8 years after that, like right up until the housing bubble happened, there was this mood in the United States, and it was in every community and with every person, of fear and paranoia and dread. It was just a bad time. I don't know if you remember it all, but I do. They had the color-coded, danger level thing that they were doing, because we were like in this heightened state of, vigilance because of terrorism and all those kinds of things. And, it was just really heavy, and we were like inundated with it, and it was in our lives, and everybody was kind of reflecting that mood, like with their personalities. It was everywhere, and it was bad. It was bad. And it was the worst time, probably. At least in my lifetime anyway, it was the worst time for America, for my country that I love, okay? It was absolutely the worst period of time. I mean, people were just so weird about it, and it was so, hyper vigilant and sensitive and all that kind of stuff. It was like just a really bad time. And then, of course, you roll into that all the politics that was happening, a lot of the social change that was happening. And it was a pretty rough go for about 8 or 10 years here in the United States. And then, like everything else, it kind of like faded away a little bit. We got back to normal. They stopped doing the fear thing, heightened level of fear and the color-coded, signal, like that this is how fearful we should be. They stopped doing all that stuff. Of course, it was the implication of homeland security and all that kind of stuff. And then you had all the people that were truthers and, preppers. They started to kick into high gear. And I mean, it was massive change. It was a wave of change, and it was all due to this spirit. At least from my point of view, it was a spirit that, as like those towers came down, not to be too corny, but as those towers came down, the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center, so did this spirit. It came down on the people, and it faded away, but it took a long time. And I've thought about that. I thought about that a lot. There was a show that came out on HBO at that time. And this doesn't sound like they're connected at all, but in my experience, they are. Okay. There was a show that came out called The Sopranos. I'm sure that you are familiar with The Sopranos. It was a magnificent show. It was television done in a way that it had never been done before. Fantastic acting and writing, and just, a show based on like mobsters and stuff like that in New Jersey. But really, they hit so many things with that show, about the human condition and the human experience. And it was so much more than just like a mobster show. It was actually more comedy, it wasn't as serious as The Godfather or, Scarface, or, it wasn't like that. It had moments like that, right? I'm assuming that you've watched The Sopranos, at least an episode or two or something. If you haven't, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about things that have to do with The Sopranos. So you can tune out right now if you want. But my theory about The Sopranos, and there was another show too, it was called The West Wing. So The Sopranos were on cable. The West Wing was just on regular television here in the United States. But I'm pretty sure maybe The Sopranos, more than The West Wing, was a global TV show. I mean, people were watching it all over the world because it was great. Okay. I can go on and on about that. James Gandolfini and Edie Falco, those two actors. Oh my gosh. We as an audience had never seen anything on that level before. And we probably won't ever again. But my theory about this, just hear me out, okay, is that The Sopranos, that show in specific, a little bit of The West Wing too, but mostly The Sopranos, was kind of like a balm for America, like over that wound of 9/11. Like it was a form of escapism for many, many people. And it actually helped Americans in some weird way, like at least the ones who were tuned into it, okay, get through that time, because it was such a horrible time. I mean, the mood in the country was crazy, okay? And I gotta say, it's much like this wave I'm feeling now with the coronavirus. It's like that spirit may have laid dormant for a while. It went away for a while, but it's back now, and it's in full swing, And here we go again with this crazy, weird, overreacting, just everybody just flipping out here, at least in America. But, it's not just America. It's not. I mean, this time around, the fear factor, the paranoia, and the craziness is global, It just feels like there is something being rolled out right now. It feels that way. Not manufactured, but okay. There is a thing, a term that you may or may not be familiar with. It's called disaster capitalism. Okay? And if you remember, a few episodes back, I talked about Enron. It was the episode called The Smartest Guys in the Room, or The Smartest Men in the Room. It was one of my podcasts from maybe 6 months ago or something. But I was talking about Enron and how the guys at Enron had figured out a way of making money off of doing those rolling blackouts in California, where they were playing with the power grid, shutting it down and turning it back on. And when they did that, they would get, they found anyway that there was it was a source of revenue. They made money off of that somehow. So these dudes were doing it all the time and making money all the time. Meanwhile, these people in California are suffering, and people were dying and all that kind of stuff. But it's a term called disaster capitalism. It's a way of making money, I guess, that someone has figured out, some mastermind of economics and some geniuses got together and they figured it out, that if they have a tornado, they make money off that. Or if they have a hurricane, there are ways to make extra revenue off of that in the periphery. And it's not even really obvious. It's not an obvious thing. We don't even think about it, right? Because we're busy living our lives and doing what we're doing, surviving, right? Living. So you don't pay attention to the fact that, when there's a hurricane, the companies that make bottled water, they have figured out a way to make money off of these disasters. Like I said, when there's a massive snowstorm, they sell more shovels, and so on and so on. You can apply it to literally any kind of situation like that where there's a disaster. Now, the question comes in, okay, and this is where the conspiracy theorists go crazy, right? And that's part of the problem too, right? But they'll say, okay, they're manufacturing disasters, and, they figure out what to invest in and, where to put their money so that when that disaster comes, they'll reap the benefits of that disaster. Now, that sounds strange and crazy, but this isn't my theory. This is a theory by, very highly credentialed, highly educated experts on economics. This is a fact. Disaster capitalism is not just a theory or something. It's a reality, right? So I'm not saying that I think that the coronavirus is that. Okay, I don't know. It hasn't played out yet. Okay, we're just in the very beginnings of it, but just to me, in my opinion, it has a whiff of suspicion. You know, it's weird. It's got that kind of weird that certain other events in the recent past have had. You know, it feels political. It feels economic. Something's up, you know. That's my take on it. I'm not sure what. I'm not making any claims here. You know, I'm not talking like that. But I am thinking that way a little bit, to be honest. It just has that kind of weirdness to it. You know? Like I said, something's up. This is weird. It doesn't feel organic to me. Something's weird. And when it gets to the point where they're like, you know, they're shutting down like the NBA finals, you know, the seasons of these sports teams are ending right now, you know, or postponed until this passes. And, you know, there's travel bans starting and cities are shutting down and quarantining, you know, self-quarantined. Oh, it's so weird. And you know, another thing too, okay? And I'm kind of, I guess, not completely through this thought process yet, but I'll talk about it because, you know, I have to. I've been kind of noticing that for my wife, you know, it's very different for her. Life is anyway. She's around people all the time. I mean, lots and lots of people, hundreds of people every day, you know, having a lot of social interaction. And I am on the other side of the spectrum, really, where I spend most of my time alone, most of my time in the studio doing my thing. So, and as I've said before in previous podcasts, you know, I don't have a smartphone. I'm totally just like not dialing into that stuff. And unfortunately for my wife, it's a little bit different. You know, she kind of has to. She has to be connected. She has to be available. And I do not, okay? But when my wife is home, you know, she's not one of those people who's living on her cell phone. She does not live her life through her cell phone, okay? We turn off, we tune out, and we go off into another direction than everyone else does for the most part. And we're not alone. There are other people who agree with us, and they are practicing, you know, this kind of self-control with smartphones, and, you know, they're not strapping it to their head all day, you know? It's not in our face all day. But the point that I'm making is, for a lot of people, okay, because, you know, my wife and I are, like, outnumbered. You know, there are more people who are strapping that smartphone to their head every day and just living their life through their phone, okay? Now, on a normal day, in a normal circumstance, a normal social or political climate, you know, they get what? Texts from their friends, they get news, they get, you know, reminders to watch this or watch that. They, you know, check their grocery list, they get coupons, they do all this stuff like through their phone. But in a time like right now, when something like the coronavirus is happening and the news cycle is just absolutely inundated with only the coronavirus, okay? Now think about this. Think about it. You spend the whole day normally on your phone and talking to people and doing all those things, and it's a part of your life. It's a part of your thought process. It's affecting your mood and all that stuff on a normal day. But then when you have a circumstance like this and the coronavirus just kind of like covering or filling up everything on that phone, and you can't look in any direction on the internet without hearing or seeing something about the coronavirus. Now, if that's getting dropped into your cycle every day on your phone all day long, you're hearing all day long. I mean, I'm not talking about some of the time, I'm saying all of the time, your whole day becomes consumed with the coronavirus. And what I'm noticing is that the people who are on their phones all the time are freaking out about coronavirus. I mean, they are at such a heightened state of fear. Okay? I mean, it is, I gotta say, and even in lieu of 9/11, okay, this is different. I mean, this is worse. Okay? I mean, people are terrified. They are terrified. They are flipping the script. It is crazy. I have never experienced anything like this before. I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, it is just, wow. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to really think about it, because it's all just getting started, you know? But it's friggin' weird, okay? It's weird. Let's admit it. It's it's very strange, isn't it? And, I go back to that thing I say all the time, like, we just live in such a stupid time. Like, what if this is all an overreaction, you know? What if it is? And what if it's not? Okay, I have to concede to that point of view as well, right? Like, what if this is really like the most serious thing this planet has ever seen? You know, like, we're in trouble, maybe, right? But I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's a whole lot of overreacting, you know, reactionary, you know, not a whole lot of real logic and, you know, control and prudence and temperance. You know, it's like this, the people that I'm seeing are flipping out. They're going crazy. I mean, we went to the grocery store the other day to buy groceries, and all the Clorox, like, disinfectant wipes are gone. You know, there was still some bottled water there, but, you know, all the toilet paper was gone. You know, I don't know what that's all about either. I got to talk about that because it just confuses me, and it's kind of funny, right? Like, why is it, at least here in the United States, it's probably the same in other countries too, but here in the United States, when there's like some kind of disaster or something, like, people, the general population, for some reason, feels the need to buy toilet paper and water, usually, but toilet paper. And it's like, what is that all about? Like, you know, in a crisis, is toilet paper like that important? Is it like at the top of the list of priorities? Like, you know, I'm going to be crapping a lot. I better get some toilet paper, make sure I have plenty. Like, that's what they're worried about? Like, that's so strange to me. Like, people fighting over toilet paper, like the last roll of toilet paper at the grocery store, you know? This is no joke. I mean, this is reality. I just don't understand that, you know? I don't. You know, it's not like they're, like, fighting over the last light bulb, you know, or food, you know? Water I can get, but toilet paper? What the hell does that have to do with anything? It's hilarious to me. But like I said, the other night we were at the grocery store, and, you know, coronavirus is, you know, the fear has hit the masses, and oh my gosh, you can't find toilet paper. Don't worry, we're all stocked up, but I'm sure you weren't worried, and we weren't either. It's toilet paper. But I could say, who gives a shit? Well, that's kind of funny, isn't it? Who gives a shit about toilet paper? See that? See how I can play with words? What a talent I have. I'm a poet. So, I don't know. Okay. Enough toilet paper talk. You know, but it just speaks to that whole, you know, craziness. And what is concerning to me, really, is that this is only the beginning of this. Hopefully it won't be the kind of thing that goes on for too long. Hopefully it will fade away like, like all the other kind of disasters that have emerged over the past 20 years since 9/11. But I don't know. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misjudging this situation. I have to kind of be, objective, right? We all do. But we don't have to kind of like flip out and go nuts and like start, hoarding and, we live in such a stupid time. We do. I guess my suggestion would be, if you're one of those people who really does live your life through your cell phone, man, you got to learn to turn it off, because if you don't, you're just going to be consumed with this paranoia and fear. It's like, it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. It's Pavlov's dog, if you're constantly hearing about it all the time, all day on your phone, it's going to have an effect. It's going to change something in your brain. It's going to make you afraid. And, oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know. I suppose I've spoken enough about it. I'm sure you understand my point of view. And, man, I hope that this stuff just passes. I hope it will. I mean, George Harrison was right when he said all things must pass, right? I'm going to get a sip of my coffee, so hang on. On a more happier note, I got a new coffee mug, a Fiesta-ware coffee mug. Actually, two of them. One is yellow and one is green. So my A mug, black, is kind of like on the shelf for now. And then that special coffee mug, the one my wife bought me, and that's kind of like going in the archive too. So I got these two new mugs. I saw them at the store and I'm like, okay, I need to have those. So I bought them. And so I'm going to take another sip. Hang on. Oh my gosh, I love coffee. I love coffee. It tastes so good. And it makes me feel good. Anyway, so, I could talk a little bit, because I could talk a little bit about some music, right? And kind of talk about why I've been gone for a month. And it's like, I just really kind of, I guess two things happened simultaneously. Okay. The last episode I did, the last podcast I did, was the 75th episode. And, I got a thing for numbers. Okay. And you remember Snowflake 33, and then I had like 33 episodes. And with the Singularity Podcast, I hit 33, I hit 55, and now I'm approaching 77. And at least in my mind, the way my brain works, like 77 is going to be a special episode. Like I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't do something different and interesting. And when I finished that 75th episode, I kind of thought to myself, okay, I have 76, right? But like, what am I going to do for 77? Like, what will I do? And I came up with some ideas and stuff. So part of the reason why I haven't released a podcast was because I was trying to make some decisions about what 76 and 77 would be. At least in my mind, I have some kind of grandiose ideas about what will happen with 77 and beyond. Like, what changes will I make? Because 77 is a milestone kind of thing for me, right? It's the most episodes I've done, right, with a podcast. And when I started this thing a while back, you just don't know. You don't know how long you're going to do it or whatever. And I certainly haven't lost the desire to talk to you. It's just, I like to be creative and thoughtful, and I like things to have meaning, right? So look for something special with the next podcast after this one. I have some ideas. I have some things I want to talk about. There's one particular story I want to tell. It's a pretty good one, so stay tuned for that next time. But in this time I've been away, I've been working on a lot of new music, and I'm kind of a little frustrated, really, because it's like, okay, I had a process of songwriting that I had done. I had done it that way for, really since I started writing songs and recording them at home. And just over the past year, got some new equipment, things changed in my sphere, I got some new tools. And what I noticed was that my process began to change too, which is interesting because it wasn't anything that was governed by me, really. It was governed by the equipment and the possibilities. So I'm in a situation right now where I've never been here before, okay, where I have like maybe 8 or 10 songs, okay, that are all in various stages of being completed, okay, but some more than others, right? But I'm working on them all like simultaneously, and I've never done that before, really, not to this level where I have 8 or 10 song ideas that are all cooking, at the same time. So, the older you get, the more difficult it is with your neural pathways, to take on new processes. It's harder to do. And I gotta say, I can feel that. It's kind of mentally painful a little bit, like challenging to have 8 different pies and have a finger in each one of them at the same time. It's kind of a little overwhelming. My bandwidth is pretty good in my brain, but I'm definitely opening up some new spaces in my brain. Okay, so I just kind of got to the point right around episode 75, right around the time I was preparing for 76 and 77. I came to this point where I was so frustrated with myself because, yes, I'm working on new music all the time, but nothing's getting done. Finish something. Come on, Mike. Come on, finish something. Quit working on 10 things at once, and quit adding on new things. Just finish what you got. Finish something. So, for the past month, I've been really kind of trying to do that, get a little more organized, get a little more focused on one thing. Go ahead, Mike, you can focus on one song and finish it. And that has happened, and I'm happy with my progress, but it takes time. It takes time. And I'll tell you what, I'm not as proficient, I think, as I used to be. I think I have reached a point where, at least with my songwriting and production and all that kind of stuff, I've reached a point where I take longer and I focus more, and I've evolved enough and learned enough where I'm actually doing things better, but that means doing things like slower. And, the age thing comes into play too. So, I don't know. You might be an artist, musician person, creative person who's around the age of 45 or 50, and you might kind of understand what I'm talking about. But maybe not. Maybe I'm just weird. That's certainly possible. I'm a king of weird. At least I hope I am. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why I disappeared for a while. But, it's just one of those things. Also, too, there's another thing I want to say. I almost forgot. I told you a couple episodes back that I was having issues with distribution and I was switching companies. That whole process is completed. So, if you're looking for my music, you can find it again for sale for the people who buy it. Because there are people who buy it, and there are a few, more than I ever thought would be, buying it rather than just downloading it for free. You can find it on TuneCore and all the platforms that are associated with TuneCore. And that was done probably a couple weeks ago. It was a little bit of a process, but it's completed. It's there, up and running. Let's see what else. I'm doing a lot of cover art because I'm going to be releasing a new. Actually, this is funny. There's not enough hours in a day, man, for me. But I realized, of course, as I'm writing all this new material, working on these new songs, that, I never released the third CD for PC3 Eskons. I never released officially the PC1 Eskons album. And I never officially released the Pipe Choir Eskons album. I had cover art done for everything. Remember I was talking about that, how Amazon had changed all their stuff? If you wanted to make CDs, hard copy CDs for people, because there are still a lot of people who buy those and are into those, and I'm one of them. But anyway, Amazon had changed their thing, and I got frustrated with it, and just said screw it, and just I'll just release it online. Well, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm cool with that. I can handle that, at least for now, until I find a CD replication company that I'm happy with. I can handle just releasing my songs and stuff on the internet for download, okay, and streaming and stuff. But I released the PC3 Eskons Volume 1, Volume 2, and I never released Volume 3. And so I have started the process, simultaneously of preparing something to release as the Eskons 3 for PC3. So if you're a fan of Eskons 1 or 2 from PC3, the long songs and all that kind of stuff, well, you got something new coming down the pike. You got a new disc for you, or a new bundle of songs for you with that. And I also have the Pipe Choir album, with Through the Storm and Children of the Sun and all those songs. I have that coming, and I also have the PC1 stuff, which is more acoustic, kind of quieter rock songs or alternative rock songs. So that's coming. Also, too, this is all happening at the same time. I am going to be starting. Well, I guess I can explain that a little bit. Okay. With this new music that I'm working on, the new songs, okay? The new album, which does have a title, but I'm not gonna say it here. I'm gonna surprise you with it. But I've been mapping it out. So here's the deal, okay? I have all these new songs that I'm working on, and some of them are like really heavy. Some of them are really kind of pretty and quiet. Some of them are long, like 15 minutes long. I'm really kind of like all over the place with what I've been writing. Okay, the new songs I've been writing. And some of the songs I have are older songs that I'm revisiting with my new equipment, kind of updating them, and I got this big, huge mess of songs. Some of them are this and that and the other, I'm like, what do I do with this? I was talking about this a couple episodes back, I think, where I'm like, what should I do? Do I make one album, one really long album of like 30 songs, and they're all different. Like the first track is really, chilled and peaceful, and then the next track is heavy, and then the track after that is peaceful and maybe a spoken word bit, and like kind of like, do I make it this big art odyssey, right? Or do I do what I normally do, which is split them up? Here's the album of long, chilled out songs. Here's the album of heavy metal, hard rock songs. And then here's the album of, just songy songs, just normal alternative rock songs, something like that, right? So ultimately, I think I've decided to do that. Now, I do know, I promised, or at least my plan was, to release a video for each new song. But I think I had to kind of recalibrate my expectations a little bit, because what I found was happening was the videos that I was trying to make for each song were dictating when the music would be released. And to be honest with you, I can't keep up. I can't do it that way. So what I've decided to do is not release a video right away for every song. What I'm going to do first, okay, is just release the music because it's really all about the music, right? It's not about videos. It's about the music. That's what I do. So my final decision, I guess, at least right now, okay, is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to release like 3 new albums, but they're all going to be titled the same, but they'll just be different volumes. And, like I've explained, one will be, chilled out, peaceful stuff, kind of ambient music. One will be hard rock, heavy metal on the other side of the spectrum. And then the third album will be something in between, And it's kind of cool. Like, I had the idea and I have been actually working on it, putting it together, where, I'll have the song Division that I released. I have 3 videos for it, right? Well, I made another version of that song for the second album. And then I'll make another version of that song for the chilled out, ambient, honest wave album, right? So some of the songs, not all of them, some of them will have a version like on each album. And some of them won't. Some of the songs will only be on one album. I figured I'd kind of play around with that. Like, whatever idea I come up with. Like, let's say I write a new song. It's an alternative rock song, somewhere in the middle. I might reimagine it, right? And make it a heavy song too. Or maybe not. Maybe if I'm not feeling it, or it doesn't sound good in its alternate form, then I won't release it. It depends on the song. So I'm not going to say every song is this, every song will have 3 versions. No, this time around it'll be like, you'll only get the best of what I have, not some mandated, mapped out rule that I have to follow. It'll be kind of a little more spontaneous this time, a little bit more creative. At least I think it is. I'm very, very happy with what I've got so far. I mean, I got to finish them, right? All these songs that are unfinished. But I'll tell you this, okay? My hope, okay, is that when this is all said and done, when this album cycle, this writing process is finished, okay, my hope and my suspicion is that it will be like, while running the risk of sounding like a real dork, okay, it'll be like my seminal body of work. It'll be the synthesis of all the things I know, all the things I have, all the tools I have, all the skill that I have learned. Okay, it'll be the culmination of all of that. Okay, so that when this process is finished, when these albums are finished and released, when you press play, you will be getting only the absolute best of what I can do and what I have to offer, for better or for worse. Okay? But I do feel like, from the people who I would consider fans of my music, right? It will be to them, okay? This is my hope, that to them, they will get that. That when they listen to it, when they press play, the songs are rolling into their ears. They'll say, this is the best work he has done. I really, really do feel that way. Okay? Not just with one song, or not just with one album, but with all of it. Okay? I believe that I am right now, okay, making the best music I've ever made. There's no question about that. I know. Artists say that all the time. This last album we just released is the best work we've ever done. No. I'm telling you, I know my subject matter pretty well. And I've got some songs that are just like, whoa. That's not braggadocio. That's like, wow, that's incredible. I listen to some of this stuff and it's like, oh, I'm so excited about releasing it, but I gotta make a video first. Forget that. No. I am not going to allow that anymore. The video thing is not going to dictate when I get this music out. That's a failed logic. It's stupid. It's a mistake. So I've corrected that, and now I'm getting the cover art together, the title of the work. What's it going to be? What's it going to look like? What's it going to be? What is this? And I'm getting that together. The songs are getting wrapped up. You can look forward to that, because I look forward to that. I can't wait. There's a couple of tracks in particular where it's like, I'm going to talk about them, I'm sure, in the future, but it's like, oh my gosh, I've had a couple of moments where it's like, I can't believe I wrote that. And I'm not even bragging. I swear to you, I'm not. It's like shock. I'm like shocked. I got this one idea. Wow. One in particular that stands out, where I won't say the name yet because the name is rad. It's such a great idea. But this song came in one day, man. In one day. And oh my gosh. Okay, I won't talk about it anymore. But you can look forward to that. It's coming. I'm working on that. And that's really why I was gone for like a month. I'm like, I really need to buckle down and really kind of start finishing some of these songs so that I can start releasing them. And it's become a priority for me, even more than the podcast and all the other stuff that I'm doing. And so I'm excited. I am. I'm frustrated because it's not done yet, but I guess that's natural, and it's motivation, right? To get the show on the road. Let's go. Shake a leg. Finish, and release. That's my motto. Finish and release. Then make videos somewhere down the line, But, so there you go. Oh, see what happens when I don't talk for a month? I just give you a whole hour. Bam! I could probably keep going, but I shouldn't. As I have explained, I got a lot of stuff to do. Got a lot of stuff to do, but it's worth it, folks. Trust me. I promise you that when you hear in the finished work, you will not say it sucks. Okay? You might not like it or whatever, but you're not going to say it sucks. It doesn't suck. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, and some of it's pretty damn good. So, enough of that tooting my own horn. But, well, I guess this is where I would do it, right? My podcast. So I'm going to go. But until next time, folks, just take care of yourselves. Try not to be too paranoid and flipped out about this coronavirus thing. Ugh. And you know what? If you find yourself like in that kind of situation, like emotionally or mentally, turn off your friggin' phone, because they're just going to keep ramming this coronavirus thing down your throat. It'll be all you hear about. It will consume you. And don't let that happen. And don't be one of those people who's a reactionary, and gets terrified. Of course you're not that way because you're a happy innovator. You're smart enough to know that, even if the situation is dire, even if it's really as critical as they're saying it is, you don't have to go crazy. You don't. It's not the end of the world. It's not Armageddon. It's a crisis. Motivated by what? I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. Time has a way of kind of revealing the motivations and the secrets and the things, why we experience what we experience. Time does have a way of showing us. Have faith in that. Yeah. Maybe pray a little bit too, especially for the people who maybe are really getting sick and really dying. You gotta consider that too. It's not all conspiracy all the time, and Alex Jones. It's there's some reality too. But that doesn't mean that you have to be consumed by it. Live your life, laugh, smile, have fun, because life is good. Don't be drawn into all that paranoia and fear. So, okay, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, my happy innovators, if you want to keep what you got to give it away. And you might have to turn off your phone. Yeah. Until next time, folks, take it easy. Okay, all you happy innovators who stuck around for some music at the end of the podcast, I got a track I'm going to share with you today in honor of my new coffee mugs, my yellow and green coffee mugs, my new go-to coffee mugs, and because I love coffee so much, I'm going to share with you a track I did, an instrumental piece called Coffee and Time. I guess when I wrote this track and was working on this track, my motivation, my thinking was like kind of reflecting on the whole idea of the podcast and how I talk to the happy innovators and we talk about coffee and it's kind of a funny tongue-in-cheek thing. And I had done this track, Coffee and Time, for an album, PC3 album that I was working on. And it's called Music for a Weary World. I released it probably back in 2017 or 2018. And there were 3 volumes. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I did the 3rd volume of that one either. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure I had volumes 1, 2, and 3. I have so much music, I forget songs. Okay, I forget that I did songs. That happens. So, Coffee and Time, it was, I believe I was working on a series of songs, ambient, honest wave, the 15 minutes or longer. Although I am considering changing the definition of honest wave. I'm starting to kind of evolve with that idea. It's starting to become more refined. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so yeah, here it is. It's a song called Coffee and Time, chilled out track, really experimental kind of ordeal. So check it out. I hope you enjoy it. Be safe, have fun, live life, and take care of yourselves. All right? Peace out, everybody. Take it easy.